There's nothing like mocking your
Ronny
opponent's
Johnson. He was
mental
a pitcher.
acuity and messing up the name of the doctor who actually administered your own cognitive test.
That was the team from MSNBC's Morning Joe pouncing on Donald Trump for this.
Joe Biden has no plan. He's got absolutely no plan. He doesn't even know what the word inflation means. I don't think if you gave him a quiz, I think he should take a cognitive test like I did. I took a cognitive test and I aced it. Dr. Ronny Johnson. Does everyone know Ronny Johnson?
Yeah.
Ronny Johnson.
The name of Trump's former White House physician turned U.S. Congressman is Ronny Jackson.
Wait, what?
Not Johnson.
Does everyone know Ronny Johnson, congressman from Texas? He was the White House doctor.
No, actually, they don't know him. They don't know Ronny Johnson.
Who's Ronny Johnson? But I'm guessing that if you're going to make fun of your opponent for being cognitively disconnected from facts and figures, it's probably good for you to not be disconnected cognitively from facts and figures.
The ridicule of Donald Trump also took center stage on CNN.
I mean, look, the entire thing is preposterous. Like the fact that you have Donald Trump up here arguing, we should take a cognitive test. My dear friend whose name I can't remember or accurately repeat while I'm trying to dunk on Joe Biden. I mean, it's just like, it's embarrassing, honestly.
And that's just about Donald Trump. Ronny Jackson, the White House doctor turned congressman that Trump was referring to, has a long history of controversies.
Only some of us will remember. Wait a minute. Was that the guy who was busted from admiral to captain because of alcohol and sexual misconduct? Was that the guy who, as White House doctor, was prescribing dangerous drugs at a rate 10, 100 times ever before seen in a White House? I worked in the Bush White House. The idea that I would go to the White House doctor and say, give me opioids, unimaginable. But lots of people, including maybe the president, were getting massive quantities, unprecedented quantities of drugs from that doctor's office. That was the doctor who signed his name to obvious lies about Trump's height and weight. We can all judge height and weight. Anyone of us who's been to a county fair, and we can see that Donald Trump is not a prize heifer. But he signed his name. So it is amusing that Trump can't remember his name, but it's alarming what that person said. And when we play the clip, we have to have the context. That is not a person whose word you can take.
But the word of Ronny Jackson and his trustworthiness is apparently fine for Republicans in Congress. They recently put Jackson on the House Intelligence Committee despite Jackson's checkered past.
Dr. Ronny Jackson was demoted by the Navy because a Pentagon Inspector General report found that he had been taking sedatives while providing medical care to 2 U.S. presidents. That kind of compromising behavior would be disqualifying for most people when it comes to receiving a security clearance or having any access to the nation's secrets.
I'm aware of those reports. As you just indicated, though, they are unrelated to the handling of classified information. And certainly the individuals in his district believe that those issues are resolved. He presents himself to Congress with his military background. And we're going to be certainly working with the Speaker and with Mr. Jackson so that, again, that he is a very productive member of our committee. And if there are any incidences, the Speaker has indicated that, as with Mr. Perry, that he will enforce our rules.
But these seats could be filled by Republicans with national security backgrounds who don't have these kind of compromising situations over their heads.
There certainly was a broad range of individuals who sought these seats.
A broad range of individuals who sought to be on the House Intelligence Committee. But the Republican House leadership chose Ronny Jackson, reportedly because of his relationship with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump cannot even get Jackson's name right. Let's go back to MSNBC's Morning Joe.
They have, the Trump campaign understands they have a serious problem with Donald Trump on facts, on issues, on you name it, because they have to keep engaging in cheap fakes to try to make Joe Biden look bad. And this weekend, they've done it over the past several weeks. They've got the New York Post doing it, the RNC's doing it.
That's a reference to clips of President Biden at the G7 summit. The New York Post edited the image to suggest that President Biden had meandered off on his own and needed to be assisted by the Italian Prime Minister. In fact, as the widely distributed feed shows, President Biden was congratulating parachutists on their jump and landing. Even a Fox News host criticized the conservative media editing.
The RNC posted a misleading video titled, "What is Biden Doing?" appearing to indicate the president straying off from the assembled leaders, talking to no one. And that wound up on the cover of the New York Post, meander in chief. You see it circled there. But if you look at it from a slightly broader angle, the president had turned to chat with a skydiver who just landed as part of a show near the world leaders and to give the man a thumbs up before Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni guided him back to where they were taking a group photo. Susan, I get that Biden is 81 and sometimes looks frail and confused, but in this instance, why would the New York Post, owned by Fox's sister company, or anyone follow the RNC's lead when the president was actually just given the thumbs up to this parachuter?
Howard Kurtz, the answer should be obvious. The RNC and conservative media do not care about basic facts and will do literally anything to try and damage President Biden. Here's an even better explanation from Joe Scarborough.
If you have to make stuff up, you got to make stuff up. Obviously, you don't feel like you have a strong enough campaign to win outright.
No, I mean, they're grasping in many different ways, but I think that's just Trump being Trump, getting names wrong and getting information wrong, and I don't think he cares.
Now, Trump may not care about getting things wrong, but politically, Trump's gaffes could be huge, and here's why. If voters see Donald Trump declining cognitively and physically, it could turn concerns about President Biden into a draw and cause voters to make their decision based on other issues. And even if those other issues revolve around personality and not policy, there is another major personal issue hanging over Donald Trump, aside from any cognitive decline. Donald Trump is a convicted felon. And now the Biden campaign is running its most aggressive ad to date, hammering Donald Trump's lack of character.
In the courtroom, we see Donald Trump for who he is. He's been convicted of 34 felonies, found liable for sexual assault, and he committed financial fraud. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's been working, lowering healthcare costs and making big corporations pay their fair share. This election is between a convicted criminal who's only out for himself and a president who's fighting for your family.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
The commercial is part of a $50 million Biden campaign ad buy that is running in half a dozen battleground states. Usually when a president runs for re-election, the vote becomes a referendum on the president and his or her term. But in this case, the Biden campaign is trying to turn this into a choice election and get voters to choose between stability and chaos, between democracy and potential fascism, between respect for the justice system and criminality. And to the extent that voters make a choice based on mental acuity, Donald Trump keeps helping the Biden campaign turn that into a wash. Because Donald Trump's glitches are becoming more frequent, and the ridicule across the political spectrum is intensifying. By the way, one of Donald Trump's fiercest supporters in Congress, Marjorie Taylor Greene, just got hammered for an absurd take on the House floor.
Why don't we pay military recruits more money instead of paying for electric vehicles and electric vehicle charging stations? That is an embarrassment, and I think it's an insult to the American people.
Madam Chair and Ranking Member Smith, I have good news in that the NDAA does include a raise for our service members.
Check out that video at the link below. It generated a lot of comments on YouTube. One of the most popular is from Doug Cronkite, who wrote, "How are the people of Georgia not completely embarrassed by this woman?" Good question. I look forward to reading your comments about Donald Trump getting mocked and ridiculed for butchering the name of his cognitive test doctor. I'm David Shuster. Thanks for joining us.